Welcome to Breaking Bread with Alie and Gabby. I'm Gabby Loren.
And I'm Ali Valerio.
Today we bring back Aleeza Ben Shalom, who is known as the marriage-minded mentor. She has two books that she's written, and she also has her original book, Get Real, Get Married, The Guide to Get Over Hurdles and Under the Chuppah. And today we're going to be discussing, do politics matter when you're voting for your soulmate? It's an interesting question. So thank you so much, Aleeza, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. So, obviously, this is a really hot topic right now, anything to do with politics for 2020. It is an election year. When this broadcast comes out and this episode comes out, it's going to be post election or just around election time. So, tell me a little bit about how to navigate dating in the time of intense, heated debates over politics.
So it's really a good question because people take politics as serious as they take religion these days. It used to be politics, like Democrat, Republican, like whatever, you get married, we don't talk about it during voting season, I'll go into the polls, I'll do my thing, you'll do your thing. And it wasn't a way of life. It was, a preference that you had. And it was how you voted, but it wasn't how it guided your life. And somehow today, politics has crept into the fiber of our being, and people are sometimes completely politically polarized, and it really can be quite detrimental to relationships. So, how different can you be? It depends. How tolerant are you of the other side? That's really the question. It's a lot to process when you're going through the dating process.
It's a really good point. And I also notice when you're on dating apps, there's a section to actually list your political preference.
Yep. Yeah, everybody wants to know not just who you are and where you're from and what you do and, what's your earning potential. Now they want to know, how do you hold politically? And are we aligned? And some people look at that. They won't even look at anything else. They'll look at politics first and they're like, oh, yeah, this isn't gonna work.
That's so interesting because I was talking to my client this morning who is one way and her husband is completely the other, and they've been married for 30 years. And like you said, they don't talk about politics around election season, but this specific election, like they've been bickering and like they just are like, okay, we can't talk about politics. Otherwise, it would ruin their relationship. When you're getting started in a relationship, and let's say somebody is of the opposite belief system as you, how contradictory is that, and how much does that really matter?
So again, 30 years ago, I would have said, doesn't matter so much. We could navigate it. But right now, it's not really about politics. Politics has become a belief system for people, and politics represent my beliefs, right? The reason that I align with this political party is because my beliefs are aligned with this way of thinking, with this way of being and behaving. And if you look at the way that the world is, politics has such a tremendous effect on us today. We see the whole world is shut down, right? And it's, politically, people are they're just connected on one side or the other, and there's so much that is really run by other people in our lives, and who we connect to, again, it's a part of our belief system. So the challenge is, how can I love and accept you when I don't agree with you, right? I don't agree with your beliefs. I'm not in line with what you say, what you think, and all of a sudden I have to be living with you or married to you? Or how do we make certain decisions when some of these big life decisions might affect us and it might be politically rooted? So it's really a good question. And again, I think the short answer is, if you are on one side and the other person is on the other side, but you're really strong in your beliefs, it's not just like, oh, politics, whatever, but you are really into it. Like you'd be one of those people that would be picketing or petitioning or, rallying people. It's going to be very difficult for you to live with somebody who is not either neutral or in line with your beliefs. If you're somewhere in the middle, like, I have my party, it's who I vote for, but it's not, I'm not into politics. It's just not my thing. And you maybe either don't care so much or you're not so connected to it. You could maybe go one way or the other. It might not matter. But anybody who feels extremely strongly about where they stand, it's going to be hard for them to tolerate a partner that has very different belief system and very different values.
I can't
So
imagine what's happening to people that are already married and are just realizing that they stand on different ends of the political spectrum. Because it's hard enough dating like this. I
Mhm.
personally am a little bit nervous and weary to bring up politics at all because I feel like it's just a way to incite some sort of like conflict or confrontation. Because most of the time people are very passionate. You can't even share a news article today on a social platform without being like accused of a certain belief
Right.
system, and whatnot. So, um, what would you say for people when they are dating, and what happens if you do bring politics up? Should you end the conversation where it's at? Do you continue? How do you handle this? Because it is a very difficult place to navigate.
Yeah. So my question is, how much do you like the person and how much are you willing to risk the relationship? Like, oh, I like you. There's something that's here. Hey, let's talk about politics. you know, you could really implode a relationship and ruin everything. So, when to talk about it is really a good question. I would say, again, if you feel very strongly about your beliefs, I think you're going to have a hard time holding back. First date, second date, third date, I don't know how much you can hold back because it just, again, it like creeps into our everyday lives. So as we're talking about something, the conversation might naturally lead to something that's politically inclined. So just for example, somebody who's a Trump supporter might also be somebody who's pro gun ownership. Okay, besides politics, you bring gun ownership into the conversation and people get all heated, and some people are like, no, you have a right to protect yourself, you have a right to bear arms, and like, this is my First Amendment right, and they feel empowered about this. They feel very strongly. And other people are like, oh my gosh, no, it's guns, it's killing people, and this is so awful, and this is why we have school shootings. And all of a sudden, again, it leads back to politics even when it's a completely different subject. So, how and when, what's ideal? I mean, what's ideal? Let me get to know you. Let me get to know your personality. What are your hobbies and interests? But if your hobbies and interests are politics, right? Then we have a little bit of a challenge. So, what else are you interested in? And what else could we speak about? And how can we avoid hot topics before I even know if I like you, right? If I don't like you enough to keep going out with you, I don't care if our politics are aligned or not. And I don't have to decide how much I'm going to have to tolerate with you. But if I do like you and there is something here, okay, now we have to navigate the things that are a little bit more difficult in the relationship, and politics is going to be one of those things.
How much should you filter your social media and what you post if you're connected to the person or persons you're dating via those platforms? Because if they see what you're posting, let's say,
Yep,
even if you're
they'll
just sharing
know.
a news article, is this going to like destroy the relationship before it even started?
It can, absolutely. So here's the thing, you are who you are. And we want you to be able to connect with people. And social media and Google is how people find out all about you before they ever meet you. So, what they want to do is they want to do their search, they want to check you out, they want to know about you. And then they're like, oh, okay, her political beliefs are with mine already. So, it's almost like a pre filtering way of going about it, which, hey, if they're going to not like what you post and they're going to already start to kind of like be argumentative and disagreeable with you, like, better off not even meeting them. I don't want people to fake who they are, because when you do that, you're only going to come to the same conclusion. It's just going to take 10 dates to get there, as opposed to, you never even liked me from the beginning, because this is who I am. So I kind of think it's a good filter. And even if somebody's really strongly politically aligned and they post a lot of things, that's great. They need to be with somebody that's really on their side. It's kind of like with Judaism, like, and other religions, where people are like, no, you have to be with somebody who understands you, your culture, your people. They have similar traditions, because those things we need to have in common. If you're very strongly politically aligned, to me, it makes the most sense for you to have somebody that is on the same team.
Aleeza, Gabby and I were actually in a relationship seminar recently, and we were talking a lot about values. So, what it sounds like to me is you're saying that it's not necessarily like how political you are, but more so like what your values are and how passionately you feel about those specific values. when you're picking a mate, like what are the top values that you advise your clients to look for?
It's a really good question. So I actually do it the reverse. I ask you the question, what are the things that you value the most? I've seen a lot of different studies that say these things lead to a happy, healthy marriage. Here's the formula, just marry somebody who has these things. And what I've learned is that my values, what I want, might be different from a prescribed list of things. So I would rather pull all of that out from you and say, hey, what is on your list? What are your values? And not tell you what your values should be, but rather identify your values so that we could match you up with somebody who is in line with those things that are actually meaningful to you, instead of like, you know, loyal and honest and committed. And, like we can give you all of these things to describe the different values that somebody might bring to the table. But if you say to me, Aleeza, loyalty is important, but like, it's not my top 10. I need compassion. I need somebody who's genuine, somebody who's sincere, right? Who am I to say that that can't be at the top of your list? I think that we know those things that are most important to us, that are going to make us feel the most satisfied. And we have to honor that what you want is going to be different than what I want, which is going to be different from what she wants.
So if I'm super politically active and let's say I'm conservative and my future, whatever guy I'm dating is very liberal and being conservative to me is very important, that probably isn't a good match because that's a big value for me.
Exactly. The higher up it is on your list and the lower they are on the ranking in comparison to where you're at, means that they would not be as good. And for the other person, it could be, but politically, it's not a problem because, hey, I don't care that you're different than I am, because like it doesn't bother me because I don't care so much about politics, right? But for you, you're like, wow, that's actually a deal breaker. And that's why it's not the same on both people's charts when we do values.
So, what's up with the saying opposites attract? Because it sounds like it's not so true.
So they do, opposites do attract. We are in general looking to find somebody that helps to refine who we are. And when we find somebody that, when we think about opposite, okay, if you think about opposites, you think about people at two different ends of the spectrum. And what do they do for each other? They actually help to bring each other closer to the middle, right? Like I'm like this and you're like that. I'm messy and you're neat. And you know what? I'm learning from your habits, and I've learned to clean up and do more things. And the other one learns not to be so type A and has learned to chill out about having like a little bit of disorganization or stuff around.
I'm going to
So
need
in
that
general,
person.
right?
I'm the type A.
So, in general, we want to bring balance to ourselves. And the best way to bring balance to ourselves is to find people that have differences from us and to learn from them. And then we grow. However, here's something interesting. Usually, second marriages, couples are not looking for people that are different. They're not looking for opposites. They have worked on themselves, they've tried to refine themselves, they've done lots of things. And they're like, you know what? I want to grow, but I want to grow through similarity and not through differences. And so they actually seek out people who are more similar to each other. And they grow more because they have patience and tolerance and they understand each other, but it's a different kind of growth. So if we're talking about, politics and, like opposites and all of these things, how do we determine, again, we really have to decide whether this is something that we have a high tolerance for, like again, where does something like this fall on the value scale? Because am I going to be okay being with my opposite, or is that going to just create so much friction? Things rubbing against each other can create friction. Friction could be negative, but it could also be positive. It could create that fire, that awesomeness in a relationship. It could also create that fire that's destructive in a relationship. So you want the fire that is contained and beautiful, that fuels a relationship, but you don't want the out of control wildfire that just takes over and kills the relationship.
I'm glad you brought up this like age thing and how, I mean, yeah, because it looks like Alie, you're agreeing. Like I've never heard this before.
Life,
The point you just brought up. What were you going to say, Al?
life stages. Like I love that you just said that. I've
Mhm.
never thought about relationships in terms of like what stage am I in? Like, am I in a growth stage where like I need someone to pull me out of my shell so I can grow? Or have I grown so much that I've worked on myself that I know exactly what I want? I want someone similar to me who I can like flow with. It's like growing or flowing.
Right.
But
Right. And the flow, it's a different kind of grow. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh, I'm done growing. You're never done growing. It's just, I want to grow through, like, sometimes if you think of like plants under the ground, like sometimes you have to like burst through this hard soil to get up to be this beautiful flower. And other times it's like this soft, nurturing, amazing, easy soil to pop through. So yeah, exactly. That's what that second time around is like. You just want some easy, amazing, well treated, taken care of soil that is just easy to nurture. Both are going to nurture you, right? They're both going to provide life, but you have to know where you're at.
It's very interesting. So, what do you do then as you're getting older and growing with somebody? I mean, I've heard couples can grow apart, but how do you maintain a marriage when you possibly could be changing from one side of the political spectrum to the other?
That's a good question. Couples have to work really hard to stick together. I always tell people, you think all my singles who I love, I'm like, you think getting married is the hardest thing you're going to do in your life because like you haven't been able to find them, whether it's 2 years or 5 years or 15 years or 25 years. It's so difficult to find somebody. And I agree with that. But once you're married, you'll see it's just more difficult to stick with somebody, to actually build and maintain a relationship for a lifetime. It is a really difficult thing. And when I say difficult, I don't mean bad, right? People hear difficult and they're like, oh, that's not good. I don't want that. No, no, no. Growth is good. Relationships are good, but they have an amount of challenge. It shouldn't be anything more than you can handle. It should be just what you could handle. And you have to grow through it. So, in terms of relationships, you have to work very hard to grow together. Otherwise, you do grow apart. But it's kind of like a plane that as it's flying, it goes a little to the right, it goes a little to the left, it goes off course, but it always recenters. So, I think in order to maintain a relationship for a lifetime, you need to constantly recenter. You need to constantly bring yourself back to each other and to that destination you want to get to, which is a connection for a lifetime. And through this pulling each other back in, it builds the relationship and it helps you grow together instead of like, I'm just, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't have any patience or tolerance for you anymore.
How do couples recenter?
It's a good question. One way is to first ground yourself within yourself so that you can be clear about who you are and what you want and where you're at. And then you have to really take a good look at your partner and figure out who are they and what do they want? What do they need? And where can we align? Like if you think of two circles, like I have my own thing here, you have your own thing here, but where we meet in the middle, that's our special space. That's just for us. And if we're not meeting in that middle anymore, how can we get ourselves closer to that? How can we align ourselves? Can we do activities together? Can we spend quality time together? Do we need to just hang out together? Do we need busy moments, quiet moments? What do we need to nurture our relationship? Usually, I think if you ask questions, it fosters communication and you can figure it out. But it is a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle where you just don't exactly know how to put the pieces together, and it takes time to work on it.
I want to go back to that question that we were alluding to. What Gabby said is like, how much opposite is too much opposite? Because sometimes in relationships, like I've been in both where like we do everything together and like we're always together and like that's too much. And then there's one where it's like I do my thing and he does his thing and then we're together. So how do you kind of find that sweet spot where you are different, but you also come together? Like what's the balance in that?
So I love to see couples that have quality time together doing something. And I don't care what the something is. So, for example, some couples, both sides love to play games and like they have their moments throughout the week. They'll play things, they'll do things together. Other couples, one's a game person, one's not. So that's not their thing. Some couples love to like get exercise together. They go for a walk, they go for a jog, but that's their thing. So my question would be, what is your thing as a couple, right? For those couples that are very different and they have their own individual time, then I want to know, but what do you do together? What do you enjoy doing together? And eating a meal is okay if we enjoy each other's company. Cooking a meal is a little better, right? I want activities or things that you actually can do together, and to know also Do you have moments of deep conversations? Do you have those, like, we do our own things, but like, wow, when we talk and we connect, our values, like, we're so deeply aligned, but like, he does his thing in the world, I do mine. It's fine. Like, he goes on a business trip. He doesn't have to call me every second. I'm not glued to his hip where I need to hear from him. So again, it's also a balance of, what do I need? How much connection do I need? Do I need a person that is always there by my side? Do I need somebody middle of the road? Do I need a little, some people need more of their space. For singles that have been doing their own thing for many years, a lot of the times it's better when you have a couple that can have their own space, and then they slowly come together and inch closer and closer over the course of time. But in the beginning, they're really like two individuals that get married, and then they start to try to do their thing together, and they figure it out over the course of time. It's not as easy for them to blend or merge together.
That's such a great question. Is like, how much connection do I need? I've never thought about a relationship like that, where it's like, I think what I'm hearing from you is that there's no right or wrong about a generalization of how people should connect. It all depends on the individual and what they need personally and where their values are.
Exactly. And the challenge is, what I need is going to be different than what my partner needs. And I might need less connection. They might need more of a connection. And then what do you do when your needs don't match so much? And in order to fulfill somebody else's needs, you have to be there for them. But in order to fulfill your own needs, you need space. So, they talk about like the man cave. The man comes home from work and like he needs to go to his room, he needs to chill out, right? That's a thing for some people. Is it a generalization for everybody? No. Some people don't need that as much, but some people need it, a lot. So aligning, like figuring out, again, knowing yourself is one of the greatest gifts that you can have going into a relationship. The other person knowing themselves, and then learning about each other. So I can say, wait, I'm Aleeza. I know who I am. I know what I like. Oh, this is my partner. I know what you like. Okay, where do we have points of connection? Where do we have points of disconnection? And what can we do to enhance our relationship without it being awful for me and without it being awful for you, where we're just constantly giving without being able to enjoy the moment because we're doing something for somebody else, but we're never doing something for ourselves.
Now, we're in the 21st century. There's a lot of dating coaches and dating experts out there. They're doing webinars, classes, all kinds of things. And so I'm just wondering, because everyone seems to have a different perspective on dating. Like, is there one way to date? Is there one way to find your soulmate? Or does it vary per person? You talk about needs and wants. So now we're all individuals. Should we be changing who we are to find that soulmate? Or should we be okay with who we are? And that person will be right when it's the right time?
It's such a good question. I love the end of that. Like, do I need to change, or can I just say, like, I am who I am? And like, I'll find the person when I find them. So if who and what you're finding you don't like, and if it's not working for you, you might be attracting the wrong type of person. And if that's the case, then you probably do need to change, not who you are, but your affect or what you're doing, because it's not drawing the right type of person to you. And we want to connect and bring that right type of person to you. If um if you like what you're getting, but it hasn't worked yet, then we could say, look, you're getting good suggestions. It just isn't a yes today. We just haven't found the right one, but I'm getting good leads. It's, like I'm heading in the right direction, even though it wasn't a yes. So yes, it's a little bit tricky to figure this out. If you don't like the results you're getting, you should definitely switch it up. The other piece of it is, I don't think that there's one way to get up the mountain. So I do agree that there are dozens of dating coaches and relationship coaches and people that have different approaches. And I think different things work for people at different times. I do think there are some universal guidelines that could help people, but to say, oh, this is the only way to do it, I would disagree with that.
Interesting.
I,
And
I think that there's more ways to do it. Yeah.
if you have a differing opinion from someone, like how we were mentioning politics, for example, is it okay if you're already in a relationship, let's say you're engaged or you're just dating, whatever, but it's a serious relationship? Is it okay to maybe just like not talk about any of that and make it like an off limits thing? Like you can have your own opinion, but we're just gonna keep this outside of our relationship. Is that okay to do?
Yeah, love that. I think that's smart to do, to say, we agree to disagree. I know where you stand, you know where I stand. And when we talk about this trashes our relationship. So we can have a relationship and this doesn't have to be in it. And then you hold your relationship in a sacred space. This is your relationship space, and nothing comes into that to ruin the uniqueness and the gift of the relationship that you actually have.
I feel like this needs to apply to friendships too. Like I have friends of all different political beliefs, and I know the friends that I just don't talk about politics with, and the friends I can a little bit. But it's like you have to remember that you love this person because of who they are and what their values are, whatever you have in common. And maybe that's something you don't have in common. You just have to like accept them for who they are.
100%. That's exactly how you do it in a relationship also. Yep.
Right. And to Allie's point, because me and Allie have shared many Shabbats together, is it bad to talk about politics on Shabbat?
It's a funny question. So at our table, my husband always announces all the rules of all the things that we don't talk about. And politics is one of the things we do not talk about at our table. It's just one of the things people start to bring it up. And my husband's like, no politics. Or somebody else will bring it up. And my kids will be like, we don't talk about that on Shabbat, you know? In general, we try not to talk about things that could bring up arguments or disagreements or politically or divide people. At like the whole point of a Shabbos table, we bring everybody together. It's like a huge spiritual hug. We are not looking to do anything that divides people.
I love that. And I think, oh, that was my dog. Sorry. I love that. And I think Allie
Like
would for sure agree. Right, Al?
100%. I literally am like, can we not talk about politics? It's Shabbat. Like we're supposed to be connecting to God, not connecting to and our souls versus connecting to all the outside stuff that's distracting us on a daily basis. I have another question too. Like another thing, this morning my client's like, my husband opened CNN this morning, like in bed, and I was like, what are you doing? Like I don't want this to start my day. When it comes to your morning routine, I personally think that like meditating is really important, or like journaling, doing something that kind of relaxes you into your day. What do you think about starting your day by listening to the news and politics?
I am more of the same opinion as you, which is let's start out grounding ourselves, focusing, who we are, what we want, intention for the day, where we're heading. Um, I know there's plenty of people in the world that don't have the patience for those types of things. And what they want is to tap into the world and to be off and running with it. For me personally, we have rules in the bedroom, and it means that there is not, phones, noise, TVs, anything like that running. We even made a deal when we got married. We're like, we want no TVs in the house. So we do not have TVs in our house. We just celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary. And for 18 years, we have not had TVs in our home.
Wow, amazing.
But your phone is basically a television now. Like your phone, like you could do anything. So we had to make new rules to accommodate that. And part of it is like, if you're listening to a program or a something, you have to have a headset in. It doesn't have to subject the other person to it. So if somebody wanted to hear the news in the morning and that was their thing, whether I think it's right or wrong, I'd rather that say, listen, it's not for my morning. So just put a headset in so I don't have to hear it.
I would agree with both of you guys. Now, what's also the rules around talking about politics in business? Because I'm sure even Allie having clients, or for me in real estate, if I'm working with somebody and they decide to bring up politics, do you engage? Do you just listen? How should you respond, especially if you don't agree with their perspective, but you're in a business transaction?
I just listened.
Right. So yeah, I was going to say, to me, business is business. And if you don't care about earning their business, and again, how important are politics to you? If they are so important that your message is so important that you want to just shove it down somebody's throat, then you're going to have to say something. But usually, when people hear things and they're not ready to receive it, they're not listening anyway. So unless there's an opening where they say, well, what do you think? I'm a little conflicted about this, right? That gives you an opening to know that somebody wants to hear what you have to say. If they don't say that and they're like, I believe this and I believe that, and anybody who believes this is wrong, and right, by opening your mouth, you're just going to stick your foot in your mouth anyway. It's going to ruin your business deal, and you're not going to build a relationship with them, and you can have no effect on them. So it's a double lose. So to me, I wouldn't say anything. But if you ask somebody who is very politically strong and feels very strongly about convincing other people of their opinion and changing people's beliefs, then they might have a different opinion.
Wow. I think it's safe to say to maybe just keep politics out of every conversation if there's going to be any potential conflict.
Or unless it's going to bind you closer together.
What, Alie?
Or unless it's going to bind you closer together. I think sometimes it's also like sports. Like if you love the same team, like talk about it. Like you love the same team, you love each other, you're building a relationship, so like you vibe off of that. But if it's going to cause conflict, like let's just not do it.
Yeah, basically know your audience. I think that's makes the most sense there. Yeah.
At least
Yeah, that's great advice.
as we kind of wrap this up, we love having you. Can you tell us a little bit about the book that you just wrote and like what it's about? How do we get it? Who should read it?
Awesome. So I wrote a book. It is called Virtual Dating, Your Guide to a Relationship in a Socially Distanced World. It is for singles of all ages and all stages and all backgrounds. So it's not something that's only good for 20s and 30s. It's not that if you're 50s and 60s, this won't apply to you. This actually applies to everybody. I have this special way of having language that is inclusive and that really just educates people on how to meet and how to date and how to go through this process virtually, because it's not about dating online anymore, and it's not about dating long distance. Virtual dating is, I don't know when I'm going to see you, because I don't know if my borders are open or my country's shutting down, and I don't know if I can get on a plane. We just have to get to know each other virtually. And how do we build a relationship and go from I like you to I want to marry you? So Virtual Dating, which is here, is available on Amazon.com, and you can find it there. You can also find out more info about it on my website, which is marriagemindedmentor.com. And I work with singles, again, of all ages, stages, and backgrounds, in helping them to gain clarity, find the right person, and get over their hurdles and under the chuppah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Aleeza. I feel like you gave us more clarity too on the proper types of conversations we should be having with our significant others, friends, and other relationships in our life. So it's always a pleasure having you on. And you guys, if you love Aleeza, please feel free to pick up this book, Virtual Dating. We'll also link it in our YouTube description so you guys can hit the direct link and click to buy. Will you guys be doing an audiobook at some
We
point?
haven't done audio, but we will have, we're going to have the digital version available too, the ebook.
Well, thank you again. It's always a pleasure. We welcome you back, Aleeza. From your two favorite Jewish girls, we're signing off, and Aleeza. See you guys later.
Bye.